Hello.
Mihir sir, your mic is muted.
Yeah, my mic is off. Okay, fine. Thank you, madam.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Nirali, madam. Mr. Kalyan Mukherjee, a dynamic student of 2002, LD pass out and vibrant professional in the field of telecom. He worked at Reliance Communication, ECI, Ericsson, PRF, and again in ECI in various capacity. Currently, he is working as a solution architect at ECI and mainly handle Africa continent. He is a multifaceted personality. He became Mr. LDC while studying at LDC. He not only write technical article on his blog, but is a professional sire and write poems and ghazals with the pet name or pen name Takhallus. You can say Takhallus Jaljala. It is always privilege for any teacher to listen and learn his old student. Kalyan also deliver a lecture on recent trends on telecom on last Friday at same time, and that lecture was well appreciated by the different faculty across the state, technocrats, because so many industry person attended it, and students also. I I am thankful to Principal Madam. Unfortunately, due to some other engagement, last lecture Principal Madam was present. Due to some engagement, Madam could not remain present, but she sent her best wishes for the lecture. And now, without wasting time, I request Kalyan Mukherjee to start the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mihir sir. Thank you so much, Nirali madam, for that really uh, mm, amazing introduction. I'm really humbled. Uh, Good morning to all of you, my esteemed faculty of my alma mater and my dear students. I guess we also have some of my batchmates who are going to join this. Himanshu just texted me that he's going to join. So today is really a challenging day for me. Last time the seminar that I had given was more related to the techno commercial aspect of telecom, as to where you should focus, where what you should study, what are the recent trends in a broad way. Today's seminar is more, it is more on the technical side. It will not be the marketing stuff that was there last time, a bit there, but it's going to be more on the technical side. uh, Today's lecture is based on DWDM, which is dense wavelength division multiplexing. And as I told last time, that it is very important for any telecom aspirant in college to have a good knowledge of optical fiber. So today's session is going to deal with that aspect. We are going to do some deep diving on layer 0. What is dense wavelength and division multiplexing? What is capacity management? What is OADM? What is ROADM? What is transponder, muxponder, and all that stuff. So without delaying much ado, I will present you my presentation. Just a minute. Just tell me if it is visible to you. Just give me a thumbs up or just a message that if it is visible or not. I hope you all can see my presentation. Is it visible?
Yeah, can you increase your volume slightly? You have to bring
Hello?
your microphone near to your mouth.
Hello.
Yes,
Is
your
it?
voice is slightly less.
Hello,
Your voice is slightly less. However, it is
sir.
audible.
Now it is okay, sir.
Yeah,
Now it is okay. Okay.
yeah.
So yes. Can all of you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, okay, then we can start. So as I told you that this session is based on dense wavelength division multiplexing, or DWDM. The session completely deals with optical fibers or layer 0. So I'm sure all of you must be knowing what is WDM, and if you don't know, I will cover that as well. So let's go slide by slide. Just a minute. I don't know what's happened. Okay. Okay. So first, we need to understand why DWDM. So the basic structure of DWDM, or the basic purpose of DWDM, is based on addressing higher bandwidth. So if we look at 10 years back, or 15 years back, the major predominant service of the telecom industry was voice. But now the voice has merged with data, and data as a service is a bandwidth hungry service. So there has to be a lot of things when it comes to data. The bandwidth has to be more, the bandwidth requirement is more, and you will see that as you go higher up in terms of time, the requirement to pass more bandwidth in a particular optical fiber pair is going to go high. So that is why, what happens, in order to pass several Tbps of bandwidth, you need to have logical simulation of fiber channels inside a pair of fiber. Now how do we do that? Let's see. Now let's say there are 2 points, point A and point B. In the above figure, you see how it can be done without DWDM. So assuming that I want to carry 12 times 100 Gbps of bandwidth across point A and point B. So if I do not have DWDM, I have to invest in 12 pairs of fiber. Now understand that in a 48 core fiber cable, I am already investing 24 fiber cables in order to carry just 12 times 100 Gbps of bandwidth. Now, as and when my bandwidth is increasing, I will have to increase the number of pairs of fiber cable. Now with DWDM, what I can do? With DWDM, I can assign a particular 100 Gbps line to a particular wavelength or to a particular lambda of the visible spectrum. Now in this, what I am doing is I am just transposing a particular signal to a particular wavelength, and this way I am multiplexing different wavelengths on a single fiber pair, and this is how I can carry 12 wavelengths, each carrying 100 Gbps on a single fiber pair. Technically, we can carry 96 such channels in the C-band DWDM, and that is what I am going to show. But the primary objective of DWDM is to save the fiber pair, to save the usage of fiber pair for carrying large amounts of bandwidth. Understand, the cost of laying fiber cable is very high. So generally you lay a cable of 48 core, and the cost is at least 2.5 lakhs to 3 lakh rupees per kilometer. Now, therefore, it is very important to save resources of fiber. Let's go to the next slide. So therefore, there is savings of fiber, savings of the core, and efficient carriage of bandwidth. Now, how are we seeing WDM? What is WDM? WDM is wavelength division multiplexing. If you read your book of Kaiser of optical fiber management or optical fiber engineering, you will understand that in a fiber cable, I can carry different signals in different wavelengths. As you can see, WDM is more on the, you can say it is less on the optics, less on the active side and more on the passive side. So imagine there are two prisms. One is at point A and one is at point B. At point A, I can converge several kinds of lines or several kinds of wavelengths into the prism and make a composite signal on a single fiber pair. The same signal reaches point B where there is another prism, and you can see that these are being segregated to the same wavelength that was actually compressed in point A. This is how you can carry more signals on a single fiber pair line. This is WDM. Now, if we look at the types of WDM and important points, WDM is totally based on wavelength manipulation. There is no electrical level interference involved. So any WDM mux demux or any multiplexer demultiplexer would be more on the passive side. It is not an active element. What is active element and what is passive element? Any element that does not require an external power source to do any kind of transformation in the signal is called as a passive element. So an amplifier is an active element because it requires power. But when we talk about optical multiplexer and demultiplexer in DWDM or WDM, it does not require any external power source. Everything is a game of compressing light and decompressing light. There is no crosstalk of one signal of a particular wavelength to another signal of another wavelength. So say I have, say, 10 channels combined. The ideally channel 1 will not share its bandwidth with channel 2, or channel 2 will not share its bandwidth with channel 3. So there is no bandwidth sharing, there is no crosstalk. These are separate individual channels. So what you can imagine is you have several logical pairs of fiber inside one physical pair of fiber. So you are simulating around 96 pairs of logical fibers inside one physical pair of fiber without any particular channel interfering with other. The signal integrity is always point to point. So it's not that you can easily drop one signal at one point. It is always point to point. There is no drop and continue, and there is no point to multi-point feature in DWDM that you have in Ethernet, that you have in TDM. So when we talk about DWDM, we are only talking about point to point. Now there may be drop points, there may be add points, but the signal integrity is always point to point. Now, as I said, consider this as two kinds of prisms or triangle, one which converges the light, another which splits the light. Okay, so we go ahead. Now, what are the types of WDM? So generally in telecom, WDM is divided into two parts. One is CWDM, which is coarse wavelength division multiplexing. Mostly this is used in fixed access network and last mile optical network. So say you have an FTTH network, fiber to the home network, and they want to realize many customers in one core of fiber. So they use CWDM over there. But when it comes to DWDM, which is dense wavelength division multiplexing, it is generally used in long haul network, that is from city to city, state to state, or metro network, that is within a major city. The major backhaul is always DWDM nowadays. Initially this was not used to be DWDM. This was not DWDM. Understand, when a signal is traveling on an optical fiber, it is generally non-colored. What I mean non-colored? So there is only one wavelength associated across the entire network. Now when that happens, you can only carry one stream of signal on one pair of fiber. DWDM is assigning different wavelengths to different signals and carrying them on the same fiber pair. This is what you have to remember again and again and again. So if anybody is asking you about DWDM, what you know about DWDM, the premise of DWDM is to carry more bandwidth, is to carry more logical fiber unit in the same physical fiber pair. Now let's see on the visible spectrum, how does it look like? Now, if you look at the infrared spectrum, I guess everybody knows about that. You have the electromagnetic spectrum. I'm sorry. So in electromagnetic spectrum, you have the infrared range, you have the visible light range, and you have the ultraviolet range. Okay. So now, if you look at the visible light range, it is starting from 1470 nanometers to 1610 nanometers. Above in this slide, you can see that we can make 8 such partitions of the visible light range, and each having a wavelength of around 20 nanometer in size. So you have 1530 to 1551 range, you have 1550 to 1570 another range. So this particular partition is called as CWDM, or coarse wavelength division multiplexing. This essentially has 8 channels because there are 8 partitions, so 8 channels. So when you are using CWDM, you can actually carry 8 signal inputs on a single fiber core from one point to another point. This is the concept of CWDM, and the spacing is approximately 1000 gigahertz. Okay, but now this changes. How it changes? If you look at the 1550 slot of frequency, this can be further split to several small partitions, and these number of partitions can be 96 in size theoretically, and you can carry in each partition, you can carry a signal input of around 100 Gbps to 200 Gbps. Which means what? That the slots are more densely packed. When we say that slots are more densely packed, that is where we talk about DWDM. So as you can see, DWDM is a subset or a later innovation of CWDM. So one particular slot of CWDM, which is on the 1550 nanometer size, it is further split to several 96 channels of wavelengths that can comprise of the DWDM C-band spectrum. Is it clear? Is it understood up till now? Guys, is it clear? Is it understood? Hello?
Kalyan, I think you stop sharing that PPT. Please share that PPT also. It is clear, but just you start sharing if you stop it.
No.
I think it is
PPT
not
shared.
visible. Okay, so it is not visible to me. I don't know about other.
Guys, please tell.
Well, it is visible, sir.
Okay, thank you. So for me,
Okay, fine. Because it is being shared, so I can see that. All right. So we move on to the next slide. Now, this particular diagram you might have seen in your optical fiber textbook. Now, what does it say? In a conventional fiber, the level of attenuation is represented by this curve that you are seeing. So from 1470 nanometers to around 1610 nanometers of the visible spectrum, you can see that the attenuation is on the lower side. However, with the increase of the wavelength, the dispersion figure goes up. Therefore, carrying a trade-off, we always transmit the signal in a fiber in between the 1470 nanometer to the 1610 nanometer band. Now this particular figure that you have in your textbook is very important, and actually forms the basis of how optical fiber engineering is done with respect to carrying signals from one point to another point. So as you can see, this is entirely the CWDM transmission window, and within that, where the attenuation is minimum, because as you can see, this particular graph is like a ellipse, so it decreases, and then at from one particular point the attenuation starts to increase. So when at that particular point where the attenuation is minimal in nature, that is our DWDM transmission window, because we have to pack more channels in less spacing. So this is our DWDM transmission window at 1550 nanometer each. Now there are certain terminologies or components that you need to know that is there in a DWDM network. The first component is MUX demux. We call it MUX demux. The full form is called as multiplexer and demultiplexer. Now this is the kind of component that takes signals of various wavelengths and converts it and converges it into one composite signal level of CMAT. And on the other side, it also splits a composite signal into different wavelength parts. So this is called as MUX demux. Another thing is called as T-exponder, or we call as transponder. Now understand, no particular signal comes with a color. You have to transpose that color into that signal. So by default, signal is not colored. A transponder is a particular element that takes a non-colored signal. What is non-colored signal? It is a plain baseband signal of 1550 nanometers or 1310 nanometers. It takes that signal, it processes that and converts and assigns a particular wavelength to that signal so that it can enter the DWDM MUX demux. Then you have amplifiers. Now please note, this is an optical level amplifier. In an optical level amplifier, there is no optical to electrical conversion happening. It is plainly a light pulse source or an amplification pump. If you know how an amplifier works, so it takes power at the collector, there is an input at the base, and based on the power it amplifies the signal. The same thing is applicable over here also. Only difference is that the signal is coming in light format and the amplification source or the power source or the pump is also coming in light format. So there is an optical level amplification, and it is optical to optical without converting this optical signal to electrical part. Then it comes to OADM. What is OADM? OADM is optical add drop multiplexer. We will see OADM and ROADM in detail in the next slide, but you need to know that this is used to drop an intermediate wavelength, or it is used to drop a wavelength at an intermediate size. So if there are two sides, say A and B, you are sending say 96 wavelengths from say A to B, and say there is a middle site or an intermediate site where you want to drop few wavelengths, say 4 wavelengths or 2 wavelengths or 8 wavelengths. You can use equipments like OADM and ROADM. Then you have a thing called DCM. DCM is called dispersion compensation module. As you can see that as you increase the wavelength, the dispersion component increases to a higher degree. Therefore, there has to be certain places where you have to plan in a network dispersion compensation module. So therefore, if you are an optical network aspirant and you are going to a company talk about DWDM or talk about optics. These are certain components that you have to remember that what each of these components do. Then you have the ATTN, or also called as the attenuator. I guess all of you know this, because at some point of time you need to attenuate the signal also in order to have a compensation of the noise level. So therefore you can use attenuators also. So going ahead, now let us see what is a sample DWDM network. A very elementary sample DWDM network. How is it done? Firstly, I have considered a very simple network where you have point A and point B. Please understand, the planning of DWDM network is unidirectional in nature. You do not have an amplifier that is bidirectional in nature. So there is an amplifier at one direction from A to B, and there is another amplifier for another direction, that is B to A. A signal needs to transmit and needs to come back. So therefore, both the legs or both the elements of the fiber core are planned. As you can see that in the left hand side, you have a mux. Now here I want a feedback if you are clearly able to see the slide or not. Please tell me if you are clearly able to see the slide. Madam, sir, students, is the slide
yes.
visible?
Kalyan,
Okay.
clearly visible.
Okay. Now you can see at the left hand side you have a mux. Here I am putting in two wavelengths. I have marked it as red and blue.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yes, yes,
If
sir.
is not being able to view the slide, then you will have to change your layout. And in layout, use the auto layout. And in the sidebar, you will be able to see somebody else is presenting. The speaker is not presenting. That is why automatically it will not come. You will have to select that presenting person's window and you will have to pin it.
But I am seeing the issue is, sir, that when I am starting a Microsoft PowerPoint slideshow, my all other views are covered. I cannot see the Google Meet window at all. I am only seeing the slideshow in full
No, I am
screen.
not saying you.
No, that is attender, participant has to do that.
They can select the presentation in their Meet interface.
Okay. So it's not for me.
Those all who are not being able to view the presentation, they can personally select that presenting icon right from the windows in the right hand side vertical bar, and they can pin them.
Okay.
You can work around. Okay,
Right.
here none of the receptors, none of the attendees should worry that they will be creating some kind of confusion by playing with the windows. Nothing will happen to other. So you can play at your end without any kind of worry.
Okay.
Just keep your video and your microphone muted. That's all. Otherwise, you can play with it. No problem. It will not harm the meeting. Okay, Kalyan, you can start.
All right, sir. So as you can see on the left hand side, I have two wavelengths. I have represented them by a red arrow and a blue arrow. You can have several of these. This input is going to the mux. At this particular point, the mux converges it to a composite signal, which I have represented in the form of a rainbow light. Now, at every particular point or in every particular interval, this signal needs to be amplified. Understand that you are not sending now one wavelength in one pair of fiber. So therefore, you are compressing various wavelengths. You are compressing many wavelengths into one pair of fiber. Therefore, the signal reach will actually come down. The signal reach will not be as much as you can expect in a standalone transceiver case. So therefore, this particular signal needs to be amplified at several places. It is also important to know that as you amplify signal, you also amplify noise, but that I will cover in the last part. But as of now, you understand that at every particular point you need to have an amplifier. This can be a low gain amplifier, this can be a high gain amplifier, depending on what is the distance in between two amplification points. Generally, each and every amplification point is a particular telecom site, and commissioning a new site is a higher expense in terms of, you know, real estate acquisition, equipments, power, and so basically operators want to deliberately reduce the number of amplification points, and that is why you have to do a trade-off between high gain amplifiers and low gain amplifiers. But here we see at every regular interval there is a kind of an amplification site. Now this amplification site is amplifying the entire spectrum. It is not amplifying only one signal or one wavelength. It is amplifying the entire spectrum and giving it to the next part. At the end, you can see there is another mux, but this mux is now splitting this composite signal into red and to blue. So therefore, the red guy is sending this to the mux and retrieving from here. The blue guy is also doing the same part. The same thing happens in the other direction. And this is how you can have maximum number of wavelengths multiplexed into the same fiber pair. So what I am saying, this is a linear optical link. Every optical link is linear, because what we are doing essentially, we are now realizing or making logical pairs of fiber inside a physical pair of fiber, and fiber is point to point. Therefore, the nature of DWDM will also be point to point. So there is no regeneration of the signal. As I told you before, in amplification points, there is no regeneration of the signal. So there is no optical to electrical to optical conversion. It is a plain optical to optical amplifier. Now we come to a thing called as optical add drop network, or which we can realize by the case of OADM, or optical add drop multiplexer. Understand that optical add drop multiplexer is also a passive equipment. It does not require an external power source. What is this OADM doing? So suppose you have, say, lambda 1, lambda 2, and like this lambda n going from, say, the left hand side point to the right hand side point. In between, say there is one section, you want to drop lambda 1 and you want to just cut the network only with respect to lambda 1 in between these 2 points and these 2 points. So what you are doing, from lambda 2 to lambda n, everything is going through and through. But lambda 1 is starting from here, it is dropping at this middle point. Again, there is another signal which is now associated to lambda 1, which is pumped over here in the OADM, and it goes to site B. So you are actually creating a virtual intermittent point by dropping few wavelengths out of lambda 1 and lambda n. Okay, is it clear? Now what we are seeing is that here we see that there is a fixed wavelength that is associated to an OADM. An OADM is generally coming with fixed wavelength configuration. Generally, the DWDM channels are represented in channel numbers. So you can have channel number starting from channel 17 and go to channel number 61. And each channel can be spaced at 100 gigahertz or 50 gigahertz. The OADM comes with a 100 gigahertz spacing of, say, 2 channels, or 4 channels or 8 channels. So you have fixed channel droppings that you can do at these points. Generally, this particular point from point A to point B carrying lambda 2 to lambda n is termed as express, and this particular point where you have OADMs is termed as add drop point. In a particular link, you can have several OADMs, but understand all these several OADMs have to be of the same wavelength configuration. Because if you have chosen, say, this is Mumbai and this is Delhi and this is Ahmedabad, and you want to drop, say, channel 21, 22, 23, 24, and you want to drop this in Ahmedabad, you want to drop this in Jaipur, you want to drop this in Surat, everywhere the configuration of the OADM has to be channel 21, 22, 23, 24. In that way, what you can do, you can create a virtual add drop network between Mumbai to Surat, Surat to Ahmedabad, Ahmedabad to Jaipur, and Jaipur to Delhi. But this network will only comprise of 4 channels. This is how the OADM works. Okay? Please tell me if it is clear or not. Now, as you can see, I told you that, in the OADM, yes, sir.
We are still getting message that presentation is not visible.
Okay.
So for all those, I would like to share that YouTube link which we have shared recently at the starting of the session. In that YouTube link, you will be able to view the presentation. So please use that. If you are not being able to view presentation in it, you can go to the YouTube link. I hope it is clear to all. Yes, Kalyan, now you can start.
Okay, sir.
Please.
So, yes, sir.
Kalyan, what is the advantage of OADM network? Why we are doing it?
All right, ma'am. So what happens is, generally, as I told you, DWDM is point to point. So let's say we have a kind of a link that is going from, say, Mumbai to Delhi. And in this link, say, we have 96 channels. Now, I want to have intermediate drops of certain channels, say at Surat, at Ahmedabad, and at Jaipur. Now, how do I do that from a system that is totally based on light? I cannot do that right away, right? So what I do is, I kind of make diversions of certain channels. Say I make a diversion of channel 21, 22, 23, 24, say at Surat. Now these 4 channels I drop at Surat, extract the signal, and then regenerate the signal or pump new signals on those 4 channels again, feed them to the line, and then again drop it in Ahmedabad. Then take it from Ahmedabad again and again drop it in Jaipur. Take it in Jaipur again and again drop it in Delhi. So basically, if you want to do an intermediate add drop of channels by an optical method from a composite signal. So the composite signal is having, say, 96 channels, and you want to add and drop only 4 channels at some points. You can do it by the means of OADM, which is called as optical add drop multiplexer. Is it clear, ma'am?
Okay. Okay.
All right. So as you can see in the slide now, in the OADM, there are 3 kinds of ports. One port is called as the line. This line port is essentially this entire composite signal of 96 channels coming to the OADM. Then you have add drop. Add drop are the ports of the channels that you want to drop or add at that particular point. In between 2 OADMs, so understand that in the site there is a east and there is a west. So there is a east. So in any intermediate site, you will have one line that is going towards point A and one line going towards point B. The technology says, and how it is done is, you have to insert 2 OADMs over there, one at east side and one at west side. This particular configuration is called as a 2-degree OADM configuration, where each degree represents the direction to say one endpoint and another endpoint. In between the two OADMs, the line that is carrying and that is passing through the channels that are not dropping are called as express. This is called as the express port. So any OADM will have three kinds of port. One will be the line port, one will be the express port, and one will be the add drop port. The line port connects to your endpoints, that is point A and point B. The express port connects to another OADM, and the add drop ports are actually those channels that are being dropped over there. Okay, so one particular an elementary OADM sites consists essentially of two OADMs, one at the east and one at the west. Okay, now as we can see that now we are able to realize point-to-point link of several channels. We are also able to drop certain channels at intermediate point. We need to understand what are the practical uses of OADM. Now, a practical uses of OADM is to realize a network where there are trunk channels and there are intermediate add drop channels. So there will be certain channels that may go only from Delhi to Bombay. Understand this, like, you know, I'm not sure how many of you are conversant with the idea of slow track and fast track in local trains. But there are certain trains like MEMU trains which stop at all the stations. And there are certain trains like express trains which only stop at endpoints. Now understand that an OADM is essentially making certain part of your 96 channel signal turn to a sort of a MEMU, which is able to add drop at several points and do the regeneration and manipulation at these points. Whereas there are certain channels that are the trunk channels that do not need to add drop at any point, that only need to go from Mumbai to Delhi. They are traveling straight on the network. So let me also tell it like this, you know, there are certain stations where train stops, and there are in these stations there may be some trains that do not stop. An express channel is something that is not added and dropped at the OADM part. It just passes through and through. But the add drop channels are those channels that are actually coming to the OADM, dropping over there, doing a regeneration or extracted to the user. User is adding and dropping, and then it goes to the line again. So in a long haul network, the OADM is most important in order to do small level of droppings at different places. So there may be express channels and there may be add drop channels. So in the long haul network, OADM is most important. And for a metro DWDM, where the DWDM network is specially focused on the city level network, it is a very economical solution to add drop channels at several points using an OADM. Okay, but as we see, there are certain limitations. The limitation is only fixed channels can be dropped. So if you have an OADM network and in a particular segment you have decided that you will drop only channel number 21, 22, 23, 24, this dropping needs to be consistent across all the sites. It cannot be that, you know, in Surat you drop channel 21 to 24, but in Jaipur you want to drop channel 25 to 29. No, in all intermediate point the channel droppings has to be consistent. So that is one kind of limitation. It comes with a configuration of 2 channel dropping, 4 channel dropping, and 8 channel dropping. What if you want to drop say only 3 channels, or you want to drop say 9 channels or 10 channels at a particular point? OADM is not having that solution for that. If one suit of channels is kept to be add and drop, the same suit has to be repeated. As I told you that you cannot have different sets of channel droppings in the same link at different intermediate points. And If you want to change the channels, say you decide that, okay, in this network now, I do not need 21 to 24 channels. I want to drop, say, 25, 26, 27, 28. Then you have to do module replacement of all the intermediate side. You cannot do it only in one side because the consistency has to be maintained. And OADM is generally only 2 degrees. So you can only have that in a kind of a network that is point to point, which is not meshy in architecture. Generally, as we saw in the last presentation, networks are now mesh type, so that they have multiple paths of restoration. OADM is a bit inefficient in realizing the mesh. Therefore, what we have something called as ROADM. Now, unlike OADM, which was a passive device, ROADM is a active device. ROADM lets the user configure the wavelength that it wants to drop at a particular point. So the wavelengths are not fixed. You can, by means of a software which can be centralized or localized, you can configure the wavelengths that need to be dropped at a particular point. As you can see, here also you have line, you have express, and you have add and drop. But the add and drop port is composite in nature. It is not several channel ports that are being dropped. It is a composite port which needs to be extracted to channel, which I am going to explain later. But the difference between OADM and ROADM is, in ROADM, user can customize the amount of channels that can be dropped. Also, at two particular intermediate points in the same network, there can be different sets of channels that can be dropped. So you can realize virtual networks, you can realize virtual rings now inside a multi-channel network. Like previously we said that it is point to point. OADM made that point to point into add and drop for several fixed channels. ROADM makes this add and drop for variable channels, which are user defined at different points. Now let's see a more complicated kind of a network. But before that, let us see what are the advantages of a ROADM. First of all, the wavelength can be user defined. It is not fixed, so it can be user defined. So more user friendly, more interactive in nature. The wavelengths that can be dropped or added are actually configured from a centralized software. So here the equipment is not mandating that only drop 21 to 24. You can configure what you want to drop and what you want to add. This can be a multi-degree network. Like we saw in case of only OADM, this can only be a 2-degree network. So it has east and west. But in case of an ROADM, this can be a multi-degree network. You can put it at a junction where the network is breaking out not into point A and point B, but also point A, point B, point C, and point D, or so on. We will see it in a diagram later. Due to its property of wavelength selection, this can be used in wavelength switching also, WASON. I explained about WASON in the last lecture, what WASON is, but you need to understand it in detail that, if one particular segment of a network has failed, then there is a possibility of rerouting the signal to another segment of the network using a different wavelength. This is called as wavelength switch optical network, and wavelength switch optical network is generally implemented by means of ROADMs or ROADMs. Network is more modernized and sustainable. So here you can make changes on the fly. If in between, as I told, say Mumbai to Delhi, in between, say you want to change wavelengths in Surat, you do not need to replace modules in Jaipur and Ahmedabad also. You can just change it on the fly. So this is more modern in nature and it is more sustainable. And as I rightly said, there are more degrees, so you can have optical multi-junctions, and that can be realized with the use of ROADMs or ROADMs. These two concepts, OADM and ROADM, are the basis of advanced optics network. So MUX DMUX is the very basic, but as you go into the optical network engineering, OADM and ROADM are the basis of that. Now let's see the next slide. Now here you see that this is one particular location where you have lines going to 4 directions. So let's take this as a point like Indore. And from Indore, say one particular segment is going to Delhi, one particular segment is going to Calcutta, one particular segment is going to Mumbai, and one segment is going to say Bangalore. Now, in this particular point, how are you going to realize the ROADM? Because there are 4 directions, you will put 4 ROADMs. Now, in every ROADM, you will have multiple express ports. So there is also a line port, there is a drop port, but there are multiple express ports. All these express ports, as you can see, are connected with each other. And at every point, the signal is composite in nature. Okay, so now say one wavelength is coming from say Calcutta and wants to go to Delhi. They are going through this express line. If you can see my mouse. So it comes from Calcutta, drops part of it and goes to Delhi like this. One particular wavelength comes from Calcutta, drops at Indore, and then it has to go to Bangalore. So it takes this line. So as you can see, sorry. So as you can see, there are multiple routing options that are available in a ROADM. And you can do a more meshy kind of an architecture in an ROADM. Let's go to next slide. Points to note. If one site is connected to multiple sites, like I said, Indore is connected to Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, and Bangalore, then it needs that many number of ROADMs for degrees. These are called as degree. So in the above slide, what you saw was a 4-degree ROADM configuration. What are degrees? Degrees are nothing but in how many arms or in how many direction a particular location is connected to. If Indore is connected to 4 directions, then you will have 4 degree. If it is connected to 5 directions, you will have 5-degree ROADM. So you need to understand the first thing that you need to know for a ROADM network is how many degrees does a site have. Then the drop port of a ROADM is not a fixed wavelength. As I told before, like in OADM, it is a fixed wavelength. Drop port is not a fixed wavelength. This is a composite port with multiple channels dropping out of the same port. Now, these channels need to be extracted, which is shown in the next slide. It will be extracted. How these channels are extracted into several signaling points, that is going to be shown in the next slide. And you need to understand one very basic concept. ROADM is a set of movable mirrors. Okay, if you know the concept of periscope, a periscope is taking light from the top. It is an arrangement of mirrors and it is reflecting light to the bottom and it is coming out. OADM is exactly like that. It is a set of fixed mirrors where it is tuned to particular channels that would be dropped over there. But an ROADM, because it is user defined, the mirror has to be movable. And that is the only active part in an ROADM, where the user makes some configuration and inside the ROADM, you have movable mirrors that will tune to the user defined wavelength to drop a signal, to add a signal, and to pass a signal from one direction to another direction. So ROADM is a set of movable mirrors. OADM fixed tunable mirrors, ROADM movable mirrors. This is very important. So that because ROADM is movable mirror, it is an active device, because how will you move the mirrors? You need to have power, you need to have some mechanical kind of an arrangement inside the module. So that is why it is movable mirror. Okay, let's go ahead. How it is extracted? Now, as I told you, ROADM add drop is a composite port, but in that composite port, after you have extracted that signal, one thing is you can connect a mux demux. This mux demux can split this composite to several channels that are being dropped. Okay, as you can see, there is line, there is express, there is ROADM 1, there is ROADM 2. The ROADM add drop port is connected to a mux demux. The mux demux is now taking out the signals that are supposed to be dropped at that particular point. This is one way of extraction, and it is the simplest way of how signal extraction can be done by means of ROADM. Now, I would also appreciate that apart from studying your optical fiber very, very clearly in your studies, you also pay a great deal of attention to the subject which is termed as applied information theory, which comes in 8th sem, I guess. In my times, it used to come in 8th sem. I don't know where it comes now, but yes, it is very important to know the concept of applied information theory, where you can understand the properties of a particular signal, that a colored signal, a non-colored signal, what are guard bands, what are interference, what is signal to noise ratio, and so on. So please read these two subjects very, very carefully if you want to make it big in telecom. Because let me tell you something, 3 books I read again after passing out of LDC, and that was Tannenbaum, Applied Information Theory, and Optical Fiber. So these are the 3. If you want to make it big in telecom, these 3 books are very, very important for you. On these 3 books, the entire telecom is based. There are some advancements. You need to go to Google and search them, but these 3 books are the basis of that. If you want to make it big in telecom, I'm saying. If you want to make it big in electronics, VLSI, there are more books, and I'm not an expert in that. There is a friend of mine who is, I believe, watching this through YouTube. He works in ISRO. Probably he'll be there with you next time, and he's an expert in that. So I'm not an expert in VLSI, but as far as telecom is concerned, you need to concentrate on these 3 things very, very clearly. Let's go to the next slide. Now, characteristic of extraction of a mux demux. Now, as I told you, when we use mux demux for extraction, you cannot automate it entirely, because suppose, say on day 1 you wanted to extract channel 21, 22, 23, 24 at that point, and in day 2 you want to change the channels from 21, 22, 23, 24 to 21, 23, 26, 29. So there needs to be a person who needs to go to that site, change the ports in the mux demux in terms of splitting. So this requires physical movement of a person, and it cannot be done remotely. So full automation is not possible despite user defined wavelength. Full automation is not possible when you are doing extraction by only mux demux. However, because there is less facility, it is low in cost. So in metro DWDM network, it is really effective, but in long haul it is not. Because understand, sending a person to Surat and then to Jaipur to change channels, it is very, very uneconomical. Then you have to keep people at all the places. Yes, if it requires with changing channels, one in Navrangpura and one in CG Road, then it can be done easily. But when it is from state to state, city to city, it is not so easy. So that is one of the disadvantageous point of extraction by mux and demux. So what do we do? So instead of using mux and demux, guys, am I visible? Am I audible? Because I just lost power over here.
No, audible and visible also. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Okay. So as you can see, this is a 3-degree RODEM site. There are 3 points. What I'm using another RODEM which is called as collector RODEM. Now all the add drop ports are now connected to this collector RODEM. And this collector RODEM I'm connecting to a passive splitter where any port can become any wavelength. And I'm splitting this into different wavelength. Now this I can control remotely because I have a collector RODEM. This is automated, and the splitter port, any port can be any wavelength. So if I want to change wavelength on the fly, I can do this very, very easily by means of usage of collector RODEM. Okay. So mux demux extraction required physical movement from one point to another point when changing of channel is required. This does not require physical movement. It can be done from the centralized software. And this is also referred as colorless, directionless configuration of RODEM, where any color I can move or any wavelength I can move to any direction, any wavelength or any wavelength or color I can take out through any kind of ports. This is colorless, directionless configuration of the RODEM. So advantages of collector extraction: I do not need to send people. It can have the basis of multi-wavelength switching and can be used in long-haul networks. So if my network is 1,000 kilometers long, 10,000 kilometers long, 5,000 kilometers long, I can use this collector mode of extraction, because then I can sit at one remote position and I can control the changing of channels at all the points. Let's go ahead. Now let's see what are the components of a RODEM. We learned about components of DWDM. What is components of a RODEM? A RODEM essentially consists of 3 parts internally. One is a splitter, one is a WSS, also called as wavelength selective switch. This is the particular switch that decides which wavelength is going to be dropped and which wavelength is not going to be dropped. So this is the movable mirror that you see. The movable mirror, the user controlled mirror, is the wavelength selective switch. Now apart from that, it has a local add drop that connects the composite signal to either a mux demux or to a splitter, where you can split the composite signal that is dropped to several individual wavelengths. Apart from that, externally, RODEM has got 2 amplifiers. You need to put 2 amplifiers in RODEM in the outward direction. So where the signal is going out to the line out, you need to put something called as the booster amplifier. This provides an intermediate gain to the signal to the next RODEM points. Please understand that because RODEM is a very complicated thing, you will have a lot of signal attenuation inside the RODEM. So therefore, when the signal is going out of the RODEM, you need to do a boosting of the signal. That is why you need a booster amplifier. And when the signal is coming into the RODEM, any line that is coming into the RODEM, before the RODEM, it passes through a preamplifier. So preamp in the receive and booster in the transmit. This is same as you see in applied information theory, linear electronics, analog electronics. In that also you will see that any booster amplifier is put in the forward direction and any preamplifier is pushed in the inner direction. So This is important in terms of ROADM. Let's go ahead now. Okay, what are the DWDM service module? Now, what is a service module? DWDM is working at layer 0. It is only logical things of fiber. But how do you get the signal? How do you convert it from, legible ones and zeros to wavelengths? This is done by a service module. Going to the next slide. So the service architecture is generally layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. So how are these layers now transposed to a layer 0 or a wavelength? This we will see in the next slide. The first thing that you need to know is a transponder. A transponder, as you can see on the left side, is taking a signal of 10G or 100G on a very black and white wavelength and then putting a color to it. Generally, transponder is very expensive. So nowadays, what is happening? The transponders are getting replaced by tunable transceiver module. So in the router itself, so I do not need to have another module of transponder to do a signal conversion from black and white to color. What I have is on the router itself or on the switch itself, I have a tunable transceiver module which will be giving me the line out in a specific color format that I want. So therefore, the work of a transponder or the work of a tunable transceiver module is to associate a particular wavelength to a particular signal so that it can be fed to the DWDM MUX/TMUX or to the DWDM ROADM. Okay, next we talk about MUXponder. Now this is a very interesting concept. A MUXponder is an electrical multiplexer and a transponder at the same time. So as you can see on the left side, you have several black and white inputs of 10G. It can be 10 Gbps, it can be STM64, it can be fiber channel 4, HDI, SDI, anything. Basically, there are 10 separate lines of 10 Gbps, black and white in nature, coming on one side. And on the other side, it is being extracted as one particular line of 100G, which is colored in nature. So it is doing the work of an electrical multiplexer as well as the transponder at the same time. That is why it is called as a MUXponder. Many companies or many old vendors also call this MUXponder as a combiner. But the difference in between combiner and MUXponder is MUXponder can be user configured. So you can make the cross connects by means of a software in a MUXponder. In a combiner, the cross connects are predefined. So please understand, MUXponder and combiner, if somebody asks you a trick question that, how can you say that MUXponder is a combiner? No, MUXponder is not a combiner. In a MUXponder, you can user define the cross connect. I can associate port 1 to some wavelength, port 2 to another wavelength, another circuit, and so on. But in a combiner, the cross connects are predefined. So this is what you need to know. Now let's see how you can combine this MUXponder and transponder and have several wavelengths. So as you can see on the left hand side, I have two MUXponders, I have one transponder. These two MUXponders are taking 10 inputs of 10G each. 10 inputs of 10 Gbps each, which I'm combining into one wavelength of OTU4. Like this, there are three wavelengths, lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda 3. This I'm taking to a MUX/TMUX, a passive MUX/TMUX, and then the passive MUX/TMUX is taking out composite signal. So therefore, if you want to channelize a particular wavelength, that can be done by means of a MUX/TMUX. And if you want to channelize a particular higher rate signal to a lower rate signal, that can be done by means of MUXponder. In future lectures, if we have the opportunity, I can teach you about ODU cross connects. That is more vast in nature, more flexible. But as on this, in DWDM, you need to know that you can have mux ponder and transponder to realize several low rates and high rates of service and combine it into one composite DWDM line. Okay. Okay. Now, please understand what are the several DWDM line interfaces. Now, they will ask you, what are the line interfaces we have got? So the line interfaces can be 10 Gbps, 100 Gbps, 200 Gbps, 400 Gbps, and 600 Gbps. These are the line rate. So these are the bit rates that you will find. 600 Gbps interface and 400 Gbps interface are relatively very, very new. And in the OTN world, the optical transport network world, these are called as OTU2, OTU4, OTU-C2, OTU-C4, and OTU-C6. Understand, C stands for 100. So C2 is 200. C4 is 100 times 4, which is 400. C6 is 100 times 6, which is 600. And OTU4 is standing for 100G. Okay. We move ahead. Okay, now a bit of theory over here. What are the optical parameters that you should know? The first parameter and the most important parameter that you need to know is optical signal to noise ratio. This is why I asked you to refer to your AIT syllabus or to the AIT book, where SNR is explained in a very nice way. What is signal to noise ratio? It is in a very simple word, it is the ratio of the power of the signal with the power of the noise. This is signal to noise ratio. Now, when that is done in an optical manner, it is called as optical signal to noise ratio. Understand something, OSNR is something that cannot be improved. It only can be controlled. It always decreases as you add more and more elements in the link or as your distance goes up. There is no transceiver which is 100% signal and 0% noise, because if that would have been the case, then the OSNR would have been remained generally finite all throughout, but it is not like that. So in the transceiver, you have got signal and you have got noise. So as you keep on adding amplifiers in the path, your signal also amplifies and your noise also amplifies. Therefore, your OSNR, the effective ratio between signal to noise, will always go down. And at one particular point, you cannot retrieve the real signal if the OSNR is too low. So in those particular points or before those particular points, you need to consider either a regenerator or a terminator mux, that you need to terminate the network over there. Any optical network is planned on the basis of OSNR. So this is one theory part that you need to always keep in the back of your mind when you are doing optical fiber or optical network designing. Let's go ahead. Then there is dispersion. As I told you, you are carrying multiple wavelengths in one core of fiber. Now, the fiber, I'm sorry, the fiber is consisting of glass. But glass refracts to different wavelengths of light in different ways. So therefore, the light pulse for certain wavelengths can be broadened and for certain wavelengths can be narrow, which means that on the other side, some wavelengths can come too fast and some wavelengths can come too slow, which means that you need to have a sort of a compensation that happens due to this. This phenomenon is called as dispersion. There are three kinds of dispersion. One is modal dispersion, which is depending on the mode of fiber. Here you need to refer to Kaiser, where you have two kinds of fiber. One is multi-mode, wherein you can have several beams of LEDs, several beams of light launched at the same fiber core. And then there is single mode, where you can have only one laser input going into the fiber, but that laser input may carry different wavelength. Then it talks about material. Now, what is the kind of glass that you have? There are different classifications of glass. You have G655, you have G652. So different materials. So if there has been an error in the field where part of the fiber network is G652 and part is G655, this can result into material dispersion. However, that is something that we see really less. The most kind of the most common kind of dispersion that we see are waveguide dispersion that can be modal and it can be chromatic dispersion. Basically, you have different wavelengths traveling in the same waveguide. Now, certain wavelengths, so in the fiber you have core and you have cladding. So certain wavelengths are traveling on the core. When you talk about fiber, the light is traveling by means of total internal reflection. Now, in certain beams are traveling on the core, and certain beams are also wandering to the cladding. So this particular waves that are going to the cladding will reach slower in time to the destination. For that, you need to do some kind of compensation, and this is done by means of dispersion compensation module. Okay, now how can you control dispersion? There are two ways. One, as I told you, DCF or DCM. This is dispersion compensation module, but this is very cumbersome. So in the newer technologies, in the newer interfaces, we have something called as coherent interface. The coherent interface lets you auto compensate the dispersion at the interface level itself. So you will not need any kind of intermediate dispersion compensation module. You will not need any kind of intermediate dispersion compensation fiber. So you have something called a DCF, which is manual in nature, and coherent interface, which is automatic in nature. A coherent interface looks like this, somewhat like this. There are 100 Gbps coherent, 200 Gbps coherent, and so on. The dispersion is auto-corrected. You need to understand dispersion is auto-corrected, which means you do not need any kind of intermediate dispersion compensation module in the network. And then what happens? Network is more resilient. You do not need to change parameters all the time. It can self-heal itself, and it is more economical in nature. The per bit cost comes down. Therefore, this is the last part of the presentation. So wrapping it up, I will make a small summary on DWDM. DWDM is an essential part of the telecom network. In today's telecom network, cannot be imagined without DWDM. Whether you are sitting in the most developed part of the world or the most underdeveloped part of the world, DWDM is a reality. It cannot be, the telecom network cannot be imagined without DWDM. As I told in the previous lecture, there are some things that are in and some things that are out. SDH, SONET, TDM is out, but DWDM is definitely in, because you are wanting more bandwidth now. With the advent of technologies like 5G and IoT, which require more bandwidth, which are more bandwidth hungry, DWDM is all the more necessary, especially in the long haul network. All the telecom operators of India, whether it is Jio, whether it is Airtel, whether it is Vodafone Idea, whether it is BSNL, whether it is Tata, their long haul networks have DWDM. So you cannot imagine a telecom network without DWDM. It is a basic technology that needs to be known. Anyone needs to know. DWDM and Ethernet IP is something that you need to know really well. DWDM works on layer 0. Layer 0 means the layer of fiber. So usually there are 7 layers, application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical. DWDM is below the physical layer because physical layer is bits and bytes. DWDM is not dealing with bits and bytes. It is not dealing with cross connects. It is dealing with the logical fiber pair. It is the infrastructure layer. So therefore, it is working on layer 0. It is important to do a great deal of channel planning. So when you are making a DWDM network, you need to do a great deal of channel planning, that this channel is going to be dropped here, this channel is going to be here. So the planning is something which is very, very key to a DWDM network. Okay. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you for hearing me patiently. As I told you, this presentation was not like we had last time, which was more general in nature. It was more broad. This is more on the deeper technical side, and if time permits and God willing, we will have more such sessions. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining.
Thank you, Kalyan. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I request Kinnar sir to give vote of thanks. Sidani sir is there? I think Sidani sir is connectivity issue is there. So I request Kinnar sir to.
Sir, I
Now
want to ask one question.
Yes.
Of course. Please.
Because it is too long, so I bypass it.
I'm there. Yes.
Kalyan,
Yes.
the channel capacity of DWM network is 96
Yes.
channel.
Yes.
So which parameter decides the number 96?
Okay. So if you look at the 1550 spectrum, and if I divide this entire spectrum from end to end without keeping a guard band in terms of 50 gigahertz spacing, then I will have 96 channels. So that 1550 part that I showed in my CWDM, DWDM slide, if each part I divide into spacing of 50 gigahertz each, then I will have 96 channels. Previously, DWDM used to come with 80 channels, but now it is 96 because previously I needed to keep a guard band on the east side and on the west side. But now I do not need to keep the guard band because you have the coherent optics. So in coherent optics, because there is no dispersion at all, if you see the 1550 spectrum, I can have 50 gigahertz spacing and I can have 96 such channels over there. Of course, I can also have 48 channels, making a spacing a bit higher. But nowadays there is a new thing coming up. A new thing. Now what I'm talking is about a fixed grid where you have 50 gigahertz channel spacing and 100 gigahertz channel spacing. Nowadays you can also have customized channel spacing, which is called as flex grid. I can myself define that this channel will be only 12.5 gigahertz. This channel can be 100 gigahertz. So I can have multiple channels.
Okay.
And
one not technical question, but in your PPT, in the block diagram of OADM and ROADM,
yes.
you have put the